Welcome to Planet Marzipan Podcast,
your fish and Marillion podcast,
where we talk about all things in the planet of Marillion and fish. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate,
Craig Houston.
And welcome to the latest Planet Marzipan podcast. I'm Mezza, and I'm here with my attractive assistant,
Craig. Or Faye, whichever, I don't care.
It's not the weekend, you're not Faye. It's okay. And we have guests. We have
legends.
Legends. Legends, the lot of them. He's all the rage, Gary Page with us again.
Hello, John, and hello, Craig.
Hello.
How you doing?
He's not the rage, that's Thomas Page.
He is. He's in bed now. Michelle's putting him to bed, so he can be quiet now. He's only 6.5, I should say.
And he hasn't got a jingle to my knowledge, but Scott Evans is back with us.
Woohoo! Hey, Scotty!
Pleased about that, look. He's pleased about that.
I am very pleased.
And
you
know what? How could I just say to Scott, though? In all of our episodes, we are up to 20. This will be episode 26, 27 or whatever. Your episode, the Fugazi episode, is number 2 still. There you go.
How about that, eh?
You've got it on repeat, haven't you? So it just plays round.
You've got star pull on that one.
Anyway,
we've only got it back for the numbers.
In a bid to top all our guests so far, we have the one and only Gary Foalle, Axel F. He's here in the
Good
house.
evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Maybe I'm the only marzipan virgin tonight, I think.
You are. And because you're a marzipan virgin, the first question goes to you. Before we tell you what we're going to talk about, it's obvious from the title of the pod, but Gary, where did you first hear about Marillion?
Yeah, well, it was 1984, 40 years ago. I went to my good friend David Cowie, if you're listening, David. Popped round his house. He said, Gary, you'll not believe this thing I've recorded on BBC last night. Shows me the... Come on, John, where was it again?
Chippenham Gold Diggers, yeah. So he shows me that, and to be honest, just straight over my head. Bloke with makeup on, didn't get it at all. I was still mourning the fact that the Jam had broken up in 1982, and I wasn't ready for a relationship again with music, you know. But fast forward 1987, I'm listening to the radio, and this song comes on, really good, and then this guitar solo appears in it. Blows my mind, and it's Sugar Mice by Marillion. So I'm straight on my BMX down to David's house. Right, David, I've seen the light. What have you got? And I took home a tape of Reel to Reel, and I've never looked back since. So how old were you then?
I was 16 then.
Right. So where were you?
I first heard them at 13, yeah. So what happened was, like yourselves, you know, you just, once you get into them, you're into them, right? So I went out and bought them all the Fish albums, and Clutching being the new one. And they were doing some Christmas/New Year dates around that time. But the City Hall in Newcastle was sold out. Knowing what I know now, I would have got in somehow, you know, whether that was, you know, a ticket out or what have you. But being naive, I just went home, bought the Live at Laureley VHS, and that had to do for Christmas, really. And then this is what I thought. Great, I'll just see them on the next tour. Well, of course. Yeah. So
it's your fault. It's all your fault.
So the Jam had already broken up. I'd already been heartbroken.
You've got form. You've got form. You've broken 2 bands up.
So basically, I sent away for tickets for the Brixton Academy show, which would have been the album after Clutching, and we got the letter back saying, sadly, you know, Fish has left, etc. There's your check back. So I had to wait a year or whatever, and it was my first Marillion / Fish experience was Halloween 1989, Fish Vigil tour at Newcastle City Hall, and then it was the 3rd of December, yeah. Then it was Marillion, yeah.
So a double whammy.
Thanks for joining us. That's tonight.
Yeah, it is epic.
The longest answer we've ever had.
Yeah. But I'm still heartbroken about it. If I could have seen them,
They were good. You should have seen them.
Of course.
Oh, don't rub it in.
You could have won.
He made up for it, but
It's the speedboat.
Yeah.
Well, look, Gary, you're more than welcome on here. Talking about, I'm going to full disclosure on this episode and the next episode. We're going to talk about my favourite Marillion album. So expect lots of fanboy stuff. But I know these guys on the pod with me feel the same way. So,
yes.
You want to save yourself an hour or two? There's your review.
That's the quickest episode of Genius or Bollocks scored.
But if you're with us for the long haul, we're going to talk about the road to Brave. We're going to talk about the gigs. We're going to talk about the writing sessions, and we're going to go through the album and the Warners and the numerous live recordings of Brave that are out there. And
I think it'll be a ridiculous amount of your favourite slots as well, because there's various different vinyl.
Anybody else taking part in my favourite slot this time?
I definitely am. I've got a gripe, and it's coming later.
Good man. Okay.
I'm glad Mark's not here. But
sorry?
I'm glad Mark's not there because
we'll be getting an email. You're all right. We'll forward an email on to you. So, Craig, you were around at this point, weren't you?
Yes.
How old were you when Brave came out?
I was 21.
Oh dear.
That's 21.
I've never been kissed.
Oh, I had been. Oh, yes, I had been.
Not by me.
No, that was a few months later.
That was later, wasn't it? Once you bloomed.
Once I what? I'm not that kind of girl.
So after the Holidays album, then EMI had a stern word with John Arneson, and I think they made it very clear that they were looking for a quick, relatively cheap album.
They had a big change in direction with 91, being signed to, John Arneson had moved from being an independent manager to being part of the Hit and Run team. And they got promised the earth. Obviously, there's the infamous Genesis story where one of the nuggets to entice them onto Hit and Run was being promised the support on the Icon Dance Tour, which never materialised. But it was bitter.
You, from the sound of things, but yeah,
I didn't say that to it. You did.
I did, yeah, both of them, yeah. I think from listening to interviews with Dave Meegan, the fact that was he engineer on
Fugazi, yeah, he was tape engineer.
So he got a connection with the band, and he was fairly cheap. I think they sort of fell into the EMI pricing strategy and costing strategy. So
it was a Dave Meegan's wife worked for EMI, and she worked with the A&R guy.
Right.
So that's how I think that's how the name came up.
Yeah.
Nick Mander. It was
right.
the A&R guy at the time.
Yeah.
And I think the connection hadn't been made initially that he had worked with them on Fugazi. That came later when it was sold to the band.
But I think from clips that I've seen of Dave, that kind of was his way into
them, yeah.
Convincing the band that he was the right choice for the album.
Yeah.
But he kind of done lots of sort of indie stuff prior to that, hadn't he?
Yeah.
He was also the tape op on Joshua Tree.
This
was a little album.
Yeah, that's how he got his...
A little album from an Irish band.
I have heard of.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Only on his mates, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was EMI expected. Hey, all right, Craig. Craig's having a coronary.
Medic.
I'm fine.
So that's kind of the background to EMI wanting something to come out very quickly. When did they start working on this album then? What year was
February
that?
93.
93.
Yeah.
So this was sort of I think the band took what would have been the cash for the recording, and they actually built the first Racket Club, didn't they?
Well, they leased it in a little brick, actually, breeze block unit in Aylesbury.
Yeah.
Just down the street from where we are
on putting the equipment in to record.
And I think that's how the thought, let's just do this nice and cheap. We'll buy some, we'll kind of rent somewhere nice, and not have to spend thousands of pounds a day on rehearsal studios and recording studios. And
well, I think they could see the writing on the wall with EMI. Is my take on it. They knew what was coming up, so this was sort of trying to build some sort of financial stability to go forward
in case
if everything ended with EMI.
Yeah,
which was quite a good move, really, as it worked out, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a similar. It was not to say that they took a leaf looking at what Fish was doing, because Fish was doing something completely different at the time, because he took the stab first with the Funny Farm recording studios back in, let's say, the end of '89 and into '90 when he moved and opened it up in '91 for the recording and everything of Internal Exile. But whereas he spent an absolute fortune and got himself into a lot of financial hock with the whole residential thing, they thought, this is our own little unit. It's for us, cheap and cheerful, does the job.
Yeah. And how did they come about with sort of tying the story? Well, how did it become a concept album, really? Because H had heard the story about the girl being found on the bridge on the radio years before, hadn't he? On the Severn Bridge.
Yeah, but the record, I think wasn't it a John Helmer lyric originally that had Runaway and was as hard as love as well.
Well, looking at these web magazines, it was Living with a Big Lie as well. I think, and I was just changing the subject slightly. Don't you think the Runaway is like a follow up to the Party? Like, I was listening to it recently, and it sounds like it's almost like I don't know if it's written at the same time, but it's definitely like she's finished. She's been to her first party, and then the parents drag her home, and then it's kind of this like they're both kind of live in the same world for me.
Yeah.
Sorry to change the subject.
No, that's really valid. Yeah, I'd never in a month of Sundays put the two together, but yeah, I can see definitely a connection there.
Yeah, it's just it came to me in the last few years when I've just been listening to Marilyn, as we do.
I've been playing a few of the demos just as a sort of lead up to this. There's some really interesting ones on the 2 CD reissue from '98. The lyrics for, I think, is it Lap of Luxury?
Yeah, I listened to that today as well.
It's more sort of autobiographical. Well, no, it's not. It's based about a man.
It's like celebrity.
Divorced, and
it mentions a celebrity
with Stephanie in Monaco. And
yeah.
It's a really different lyric to how it ended up.
Mm.
We're jumping around a little bit, but the making of is the very first making of, and it's more snippets rather than, as they became later, full jams or 3-4 minute sections. So it's hard. These demos that are on the 2 CD reissue are more interesting because they're more sort of song structures. There's Living with a Big Lie, Lap of Luxury, and something called Dream Sequence, which is an instrumental section that they didn't use. But yeah, I think as one of you guys has said, the Helmer lyrics, Runaway, and was it Living with a Big Lie, you said, Gary?
I think, if looking at the web magazines today, I'll try and find it in a minute.
I think those are the things that H sort of hung the story onto, and then they had a sort of start somewhere to sort of a framework for the story.
Yeah, an initial framework to start with,
yeah.
I don't think they initially set out to do a concept album, did they? I remember reading an interview with Mark Kelly, and they said it was never the intention. It kind of just happened, and they didn't want to go down the trap that they'd fallen into on Holidays in Eden, and of like making something really commercial or not what they wanted. So yeah. They've talked about this a few times, but that struggle to finish a song, not finish it as in like complete it, like just actually end it without it
going on for 6 weeks.
yeah, and that's how it kind of came about.
It's interesting that the guy who kind of a lot of the old hardcore might have thought was responsible for them going a bit pop on Holidays in places. He's the guy who's the catalyst for doing a concept album.
Yeah, and going completely uncommercial,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the documentary, I think Is It Rothers talks about this is the first album where they kind of work together as a unit. Season's End was virtually finished when H came on board, so it was just sort of local melodies and maybe Easter being added. Holidays was traumatic for them because they were all working at their pace, and H was wanting to finish things and neatly tie up sort of songs. And by Brave, he'd slowed down to their glaciation pace of writing. And you know, when we had chatted with him the other week, he was talking about this, that he really did struggle. His whole writing style was put that section with that section, and then we can move on. Whereas they were like, I'm not really sure about that. Let's just put it on the shelf and see what happens,
I think when he starts something, he likes to get it processed through and finished rather than left dangling, put on the shelf for 6 months or a year, and then to come back. He said with his pop sensibilities, he just likes to get things finished.
Yeah, going back to my web archive. This is them talking about recording. They've just started recording, but there's 3 lyrics. There's Bridge that he's published, Living with the Big Lie, and Runaway, and Standing in the Swing. And it's got the album titles Throw in a 7. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
So that's in this web magazine.
What episode? What?
It says number 194, but I don't think it is. I think it's like 93 because it says that they're recording in Marouatte. So I don't think it is 94. I think there's a mistake at the front.
They used to number them for your year of membership, didn't they? I think, yeah.
It's got H on the front, that's a great picture, actually. Then,
yeah. While we were talking about like the road to it and like how they ended up recording and how they are now, I think Brave is the album that has like paved all their years up to now in terms of how they record. I mean, they always talk about how quick Afraid of Sunlight came out after Brave, but I think the process that they went through with Brave kind of made that possible. Yeah, and I don't think they've looked back since then. I think I'm not saying I don't think they've bettered Brave, but I think how they record and go about things and explore sounds was all from that. That was the album that changed and wanted.
Oh, massively.
Yeah. I hadn't listened to the Marouatte Jam for, I'd say, about over 15 years, and I listened to it on the way to work today, and it's amazing. Like, sounds, I mean, there's little snippets of all those that kind of mad section in there. But it's just great hearing them jamming away, and that's the beauty of it. I think that's why they're so unique, really.
It's interesting because time has played a different view on it. I think because like I remember Holidays in Eden coming out and everyone crying because it was commercial, and when you look back on that now, you go, well, no, it's not really, is it? Like if you look at the end songs, the opening songs, the party, I think because it had No One Can on, it was seen as commercial.
Yeah,
which was only an updated version of Kaylee in reality, and like so, I think if you kind of
sorry, No One Can an updated version of Kaylee.
Yeah, it's in like a 4-minute pop song. Yeah, I mean, okay, it's not in the same league as Kaylee, but I'm saying like it wasn't as if they'd not done it before.
Yeah.
For some reason, a lot of people barked at it, but yeah, I think if you look back on that now, Holidays even fits in a little bit more with the first 4 albums and Season's End than it does with later Marillion, I think.
No, you're right.
I think this gave them the freedom. I mean, they basically just carried on down the road they were on with this. EMI thought they were getting a cheap album. They got an album that cost them £375,000, plus 100 grand on the film, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, so it's a £500,000 debt is just like, woo.
So it could easily have been the end with them at EMI. I mean, they let them stay on for that last album of the contract, thankfully. But I get the impression that the guys were sort of finally pleased that the 5 of them were writing together and all felt like a unit after the split with Fish. This was the first time that they really sort of gelled together and were moving in the same direction. So they were sort of on a course and weren't going to be stopped.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's as Scott was saying. I think it is the template really of them working together as a 5, as a collective. Beautifully.
Yeah.
And then they looked for somewhere apart from, working in the racket club, they looked for somewhere to get away from it all, to get away from distraction, to get the writing process on. And was Miles Copeland.
They were offered that through Miles Copeland, or their link with IRS Records.
Yeah, because he's the head of IRS in America, the American label at the time. And they decided to pack up everything and head off to the Dordogne.
Well, the Chateau Marouatte features in both Marillion and Fish's history, doesn't it?
It does, with the writing session that Fish did, that ended up being a fair chunk of Rain Gods with Zippos. Coming soon to a podcast near you.
Yeah, at some point. I think Miles had been using the Chateau as a sort of a writer's base, so he would get groups of songwriters together, rent out the Chateau, and they'd do songwriting workshops. And the idea was that they would get songs that they could farm out to other artists if need be. But yes, so as Craig says, the band sort of decamped to the Chateau, cables trailing from each of the turrets of the castle to connect everything up. They had microphones in stairwells just to capture ambience.
In this web magazine, the H refers to it as a space shuttle crashed in a cathedral.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a better way with words than I have, hasn't he?
I would imagine if you were there at the time, you'd be very, very paranoid, because no matter if you're going to go in the bath, if you're going to go to the toilet, is there a microphone there? Is Dave Meegan hiding and recording everything that's going on?
It's interesting, though, considering they went there with, a couple of songs. It says it's almost a continuous piece of music. So they obviously knew it was going to be a continuous piece of music, just over an hour long. He says the songs occur like beads on a necklace. So they obviously knew it was going to be what it became, kind of.
But they'd only... Am I right? How long were they at the Chateau for?
It was it 2 months? With a break, with a week's break at some point in between, but I think it was 2 months or there from I think it was from the February.
And the idea was that they'd get all the recording done there, and then they'd mix at Parr Street in Liverpool.
Yeah. What did they get? Some of the drums and some of the bass.
The album out. All they actually recorded is the drums. Is that right?
Yeah, some of the drums and some of the bass.
And a bit of the bass wanted.
Yeah.
Well, Gary would know that. He'd be the bass player.
Yeah. I guess more importantly, they wrote the majority of the material, I guess.
Yeah, but EMI were hoping that time.
Of course, we're waiting for a mix.
Yeah,
sure.
So they just come back to Liverpool, mix the album.
Yeah.
Robert's your uncle. But,
and I think the A&R guy was having palpitations as the weeks and months drew on. And you can imagine it if a record company, I mean, you could imagine it now, if a record company was spending this big chunk of money and they need a return as soon as possible. He's worrying for his job because there's there's a blank check out there for a band making an album, and I think some senior management must have been really seriously breathing down his neck.
Well, even as a fan, like I got into the band through Holidays in Eden when I was about 16, and saw them. I know you were at the gig, Craig, the 10th anniversary gig in '92, and I was thinking, next year there'll be an album, and it'll be the first album I buy when it comes out. And I waited, and it just seemed, when you're younger, time goes on forever, doesn't it? But it just seemed to go on forever until it came out.
I think it was the fact that even though we weren't round at the time, your script, your Fugazi, your Misplaced were like bang, 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 a year apart.
Thank you, Sal.
Well, we'll speak personally.
Yeah, so it wasn't that long between Season's End and Holidays, and then you had the 10th anniversary in between. So we were expecting after the 10th anniversary, next year an album, and it wasn't. And it was all we had in between the Fish and Marillion front was Songs from the Mirror and the start of '93.
I pretty much did my whole of college, well, from the 10th anniversary gig to Brave coming out. So yeah, seemed a long time.
Yeah. So what was the web magazine covering while they were sort of recording then, Gary? What sort of things were featured in the magazine?
So there's an interview, there's a review. So just like it is now, kind of fans talking about past gigs, and there's a bit about songwriting by Mark Kelly. and he just talks about King of Sunset Town, Splinter. I haven't read these for years. I'm going to read them again. There's a Q&A with H, where he's strangely his favourite film's Apocalypse Now.
Which does get a mention a few times.
Yeah, I know, it was, yeah. Amount of times I've heard him say that.
The whole Heart of Darkness.
Bless him. There's not much, not a great deal in there.
I think the issue after that, which had got them all dressed in Mexican gear, the teeth blacked out, and they had a tequila party. That covers a lot of the Marouatte period, if I remember rightly, from my web subscription days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can remember just thinking, it just looks like they're pissing about. Get back in the studio and off the tequila.
For God's sake.
Pull yourselves together, boys.
Yeah.
I think they've thought getting Dave Meegan is a cost-saving exercise, but the guy enjoys spending ages and ages. He's a perfectionist, and he likes to play around with the studio, and he's not the right man to knock something out in. Then again, the next album after this may be so.
Well, I didn't know I was just having a look at what he's worked on. He's an engineer on "It's a Sin" by Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
He's the Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a massive Pet Shop Boys fan. I didn't know that. Crazy. And also Erasure. He's done a lot of pop stuff, a lot of indie stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about Parr Street was they met Mike Hunter there.
They did.
So,
but didn't Parr Street have a Marillion connection in any case? Because wasn't it Paul Lewis's place?
It was Paul Lewis's studio, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because was it tour manage them? Or?
Tour manager back in the Fish days.
See, this is before my time. Before my time.
Isn't that where they finished
Old
the
Testament, Craig? You still researched?
It's all he calls us Craigypedia half the time.
Sorry, Scott.
Sorry, Scott. Yeah, Karen.
Oh, sorry. I think one Parr Street where they finished Fugazi, or it got mixed whilst they weren't there.
I don't know. Could be true.
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't Fugazi get mixed and mucked around with almost every single studio within the UK?
Yeah, Fugazi. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, when we did the Fugazi, they were mixing in about 3 or 4 studios, weren't they?
Yeah. But I think it got pulled together.
I think the final play. I think you're right, though, Scott. The final playback was at Parr Street.
Yeah.
But by that point, they were hearing it just as they were going on tour, and they couldn't do anything with the mix.
Couldn't do out with it. Yeah.
I think there's so many places done. I think probably, John, even your kitchen was probably used for something like that.
It's in the back. They could have used the toilet. Yeah.
A little Parr Street. I think it's a rubbish anecdote, really. My friend Hannah was doing something in there, and I was touring with my friend David, as Craig knows, David Foalle.
Now, hold on a second. My friend Hannah. Come on, it's Hannah Peel, who is just so in at the minute. Bless
she
her.
Is, I know.
She is massive at the minute.
Yeah, she's a lovely person.
Circles, yeah.
She's a lovely person and really talented. And she was doing a thing for the Liverpool City of Culture. So she said, "Oh, do you want to come down to the studio and hang out?" And she was like, "It's called Parr Street Studio." And my hairs on the back of my neck went up, and I was like, "Yes." So all I did was just like wander around and just like sit on the floor, look around, and it was just geeking out. Really, it was just a brown studio.
But it was still. Sorry, Gary, go on.
But it was just being in there, and I was like, in my head, it was just like, "This is where they call it brave. This is where they call it brave." Just stay calm.
I was just going to ask, it's still operational and still
I'm not
open?
sure because the Coral
has it not just closed?
Yeah, it might have done.
Thought,
I know the Coral had it for a bit. The band, the Coral, but I'm not sure if it's still open or not.
I think it's just closed. Yeah,
I think I went there.
Some problems where some of the stuff from, was it Afraid of Sunlight or something, was supposed to be stored there and it went missing. That's why they had to do a whole ground up like reworking of the Afraid of Sunlight remaster, because a lot of the stuff had gone missing and possibly that was at Parr Street Studios. Somebody can message in and go, "Craig, you're full of shite."
Yeah, ever knowingly accurate.
According to Google, I think it's still open and working.
Yeah, right.
We'll get down there, record our album.
Yeah. That's something the world never needs to hear. Planet Marzipan album.
John on spoons.
That will be my lot, yeah. So that Was there a? Am I right in thinking there was some sort of a web launch of the magazine of the album? Sorry,
didn't they do something in Holland?
Well, sorry, I said no very confidently then, but I thought they didn't have much time because they had to. It's similar to Fugazi, wasn't it, where they had to, but the tour. They were committed to the tour.
Yeah, they were committed to the tour in the February. The album was supposed to be out in the September of '93.
Yeah,
so I think it was. I think it's supposed to be going to the summer of '93, then September '93, and then the next window was February. But
I think it was really close because I seem to remember travelling to Liverpool.
That was 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks from.
And still listening to the album, trying to get my head around it. Before
were you at the Liverpool gig?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
fantastic.
That'll be Sunday, the 20th of February. A warm-up gig. I've got it in my web. I feel like a right geek. It's in the web mag.
Gary, on here. We are geeks. That's it.
I know. I'm with it.
I'm out of my depth, me.
I'm among
people. On a brilliant podcast, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That ship has sailed and sunk.
That was the first performance of Brave in its entirety. They did 4 acoustic sort of radio shows between January and the 11th of February. So
yeah, that's what I must have been thinking rather than a fan club shows, the radio
Holland,
stuff.
Germany, and 2 in Italy, where they did Cover My Eyes, Easter, Hollow Man, Lap of Luxury, Great Escape, Hooks in You and Slange.
Mm-hmm.
That may well be where the acoustic promo EP comes from, or those arrangements.
Yeah, the acoustic promo EP was from a radio broadcast, if I remember right.
I didn't know about that, the existence of that until this 2 CD remaster, and I think they're actually
it's quite. Yeah, because I know it was on the what year was that remaster? Was that the 98? 98 one. So that stuff didn't port over at all to the Warner's issue, which is a shame.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that acoustic CD existed because it never turned up on any record fairs or anything that I'd seen.
You know, prior to Brave, then every album was preceded with single, and probably some of the songs have been performed live, kind of as a teaser.
Well, yeah, because with Holidays you had the stuff in Bristol. Was it Bristol?
I saw that not
this was preceded with a single, but not in this country.
Yeah. So there was nothing in the UK other than getting that import of Great Escape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Hollow Man, wasn't it? The first single.
Well, the UK was, but strangely, I think I posted this on our little pod group. In the initial CD of the album, you got this little inlay which talks about The Great Escape, available March 94, features exclusive 12 minutes of extra music from Brave, and that was in the UK edition.
Which didn't happen.
No.
Lies.
Very strange.
But it's funny because the album came out, let's see, without any fanfare or anything like that, and let's say the 7th of February in '94, and it was Craigie PG, and this is without actually looking on the internet. There was 3, if I remember right, 3 new entries that week in the top 10. There was number 1 was Enigma's Return to Innocence. That came number 1. Therapy came out, and that was in the top 10. That came above Brave, and Brave was in number 10.
Yeah.
See, this is Mikey would be proud of us remembering this crap. For he's got all the chart statistics and stuff in his head.
And I remember the Q review. It got 3 stars out of 5, and they were. I think they said about Hogarth's voice soars. That's the only thing I can really remember. About
that was it was thought the album was okay, but they really liked The Great Escape.
Yeah.
Well, The Great Escape was released on single on the 10th of January in Holland. So
was it Holland? Was it Holland and Germany, or was it just Holland? I don't know.
Just Holland, I think.
I was working in HMV when Brave came out, and it did drop with very little fanfare. I remember that, and I remember opening up the box very excitedly in the stockroom, whacking it on this stockroom CD player, and it's just not a album that you put on the stockroom CD player. I remember putting it on and thinking I must have been distracted. So what I'll do is I'll put it on again. And this was still in the stockroom at HMV. And it wasn't really until I got it home and listened to it on headphones that was like, oh, I like what's kind of going on here. But yeah, that very first listen, it was like, yeah, it's kind of not surprising it got the reaction and that it did. Very initially, I went in at number 10, then dropped off, and then they struggled with the singles because it's not an album that you can just drop into. Is it? Even like if you look at the like Misplaced Childhood, which is technically one piece of music if you look at it, and but you can still very much feel the different parts, can't you? Whereas I think initially with Brave, that just didn't feel like it. It felt like a Mirandering kind of. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't know why it was.
Yeah, I think my was, as I was saying earlier, it was such a long wait, and I was waiting all this time for a Marillion album I could buy on the day of release. So I just turned 18, and I soaked it up straight away. I'm not just saying this to be cool after the fact, but I loved it. Like second listen, it was like my favourite album I've ever heard. And maybe it was my age, maybe it was that anticipation, but I just remember it just soaking up straight away and thinking this is genius.
Gary, What did you think of it first time?
Same as other Gary, mate. I mean, I would have stuck with, as we probably all would, I would have stuck with the band regardless of what direction they went in. But to me, this was the album I was waiting for from the H era, which I never knew that was something to make, a territory they were going to go in. But when they did, that was it, But I don't think it was 2 weeks after when we actually went to the gigs, and I don't even think it was until we'll come on to this, but when we saw it live, that's when it came alive as well, and I kind of understood it more,
Craig, what did you make of it?
Well, I'd first seen the cover a few weeks early, before any adverts were, before it saw it in the shops. It was in the Brits magazine. Every year the Brits Awards used to do a magazine that used to go into the HMVs and stuff like that.
Pick it up in Woolies, didn't you? You used to pick the magazine up in Woolies, I think.
I can't remember where I picked it up. Picked up more in Woolies, but pick and mix. And the cover was actually on part of a pile of covers on an EMI advert for upcoming albums. And I saw the cover and I was like, ooh, that's nice. That's completely different. But so I knew what I was looking for as soon as I went into the shop. Me and Mikey were at college at the time, and we left college because we also always go like CD shopping and video shopping on a Monday for new releases and stuff. We used to go to Newcastle for that, and we are in college in Sunderland, and we're going through to Newcastle, so we stopped off at the Hour Price in Washington to get the cassette to listen to in the car on the way to Newcastle to buy the CD and the vinyl.
Uh-huh.
And our first initial thoughts were they forgot to put the songs on.
That's exactly what I was waiting for you all to do that, because I hated it. I thought my favourite band had lost it completely.
I thought, what the chuffamadoodle is this? Because I wasn't expecting a Holidays Needing Part 2 or Seasons End Part 3 or anything like that. I just didn't know what to expect. So I think by the time we'd got to Newcastle, I think we'd got up to like Wave Mad and the Opium Den and stuff. And I was like, what, the actual? Because there'd been nothing like it, nothing like it at all, even listening to the older stuff. And to be fair, it only took a couple of proper listens, because I bought the CD, bought the vinyl, went home, played the CD properly, and as soon as I heard The Great Escape and Made Again, I was like, yep. And that was on my first listen. I was the first half of the album and stuff, yeah. Once you got The Great Escape, and that absolutely, yeah, I can get on board with this. And the more I listened to it on the couple of weeks running up to going to see them in Leeds, I was really getting it. But once I saw it live, just like Gary said there, bayek. I
was talking to Leslie about the pod we were doing tonight. She said you hated it when it first came out. I did. I said exactly what you just said. They've forgotten to put the songs on it. there were 3 weeks between the album coming out and us going to that Leeds gig. It was on the 24th of February.
Yeah.
I think, as you and Gary have just said, it was starting to seep in. I was certainly persevering with it because they were my favourite band. But seeing it live, just with the theatrics and H with the ponytails and the makeup and all of that, it really came to life then.
Yeah, it was special.
Yeah.
That's how when it clicked in for me, I remember listening on headphones. It's when Wave came on. That was when I was like, oh, this is good. And then, by the time, we got to Liverpool and then the performance at Liverpool, it was like, this is special. And, I think it stayed that way for me. I've never changed my opinion on it, really.
I still joke with Craig, whenever they play Mad live, I still turn to him and say, this is when they were good, isn't it? Doesn't normally get that reaction. He rolls his eyes normally.
Yeah.
I'm sure in H's Invisible Man Diaries, that he mentions that Leeds gig as being something special. I mean, it was for me.
The TNC was just a big square venue, wasn't it? It was a strange sort of place, but
it had quite a wide stage, if I remember right.
We did, yeah. We'd seen Fish there on the Sushi tour, didn't we?
Yeah, it was on the Songs from the Mirror,
the Mirror tour
with the Nets.
And I mean, very off topic this, but I remember seeing Little Angels on their last tour in that room, and the whole room was just jumping up and down, front to back. It was a different sort of gig to the Brave gig, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's silly things I remember about that gig. I mean, it was me fourth time seeing them. I'd seen them twice on holidays, once on the 10th anniversary gig, and then Brave was the gig. But I mean, there was a year and a half in between, from the September 92 through to the February 92. It was a long period of time and not seeing them.
Mm.
And I remember being really impressed with John Wesley as well, and the support. Really like John Wesley, and that gig was absolutely stunning. And I couldn't have given two chuffs if they'd actually played anything after Brave. I wasn't there necessarily just to see them play Keeley or anything like that. I wanted to see Brave, and I'm absolutely blown away with it.
Obviously, it was the because I saw them I think I saw them on Saturday night at Hammersmith. I think that was the first one. Let me just double check. No, it was the Forum. It's now the
Town Forum.
Yeah, it's now So that had been the first. I saw them in London with my cousin, and obviously I walked in and it was the river, and I was like, have they started? What's this? Is that No One Can? What's going on? It's confusing my 18-year-old brain. It was the atmosphere in there. I can still kind of see it now. Brilliant gig as well. 2 nights
of the Forum on the first leg.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Mike Hunter pulled River together, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Do you think in retrospect John Wesley seemed so good because you were just about to get your arse bored off you for an hour of ambience?
The funny thing is my dad was at that gig, and I think that was his first Marouatte gig, and he was at the back by the bar. And he'd spent a fair bit of time actually talking to John Wesley, having a crack on with him, while we were down the front.
For the rest of the gig, so like Leeds and whatever. So for the, I don't know whether this happened at all gigs, but for the Liverpool gig, they had incense burners everywhere, only on stage, but around.
I don't know. I mean, H talks about that in the documentary, but I don't recall. I mean, it may have happened.
No, I don't think so, because it was a standing gig and it was quite packed.
Where was it in Liverpool? What venue was it?
Royal Court.
Right, okay.
Which is the one on the slope into. I don't know if it's still but it was like on the piano and like sort of where the stage started, but before the monitors, there was like a row of them, if I remember rightly, and it stunk.
Why did you go to Liverpool, Scott? Because it was the first one?
Yes. Well, interestingly as well, and I really don't know the answer to this. I'll never know because it's only my memory. So, but it was also the only gig I did on the Brave tour, which if I went back to Holidays in Eden, the only dates I didn't do were the Scottish dates.
So you did pretty much all of them, didn't you?
Yeah. Like by the time they did Cumbria Rock, I'd got like backstage pass for that and stuff because I was so always there and always with them. So what I really, really don't know. I don't know if work got in the way or something like that. But yeah, I only saw them at Liverpool. And yeah, I would have been an eager beaver to go out and see what it was. So yeah, Liverpool was the only show, but it was a special show. I mean, when people ask me what was your favourite gig of all time, I normally say that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
But speaking of Cumbria Rock, though, we didn't do that. Gary, you did Cumbria Rock, didn't you, Mr. Page?
I didn't. I know you've seen my T-shirt.
I didn't know whether you did.
I didn't. I bought the T-shirt from Eastbourne HMV for some random reason. It was just in there, and I remember listening to the tape till it wore out from Radio 1, and the interview with Tommy Vance at the beginning. I think I did it in a toilet or something. But no, you've seen my picture.
How many recordings in toilets are going to be in this podcast?
Yeah. But no, that T-shirt in that picture I shared with you is I didn't get out of Eastbourne. I didn't get to Cumbria. That was too far. That was too far away for me at 18.
I was going to say it's like 300 plus miles away from.
I know, yeah.
miles.
Yeah, it is interesting though because the reason I was like at Cumbria as well is because it was not in my mindset at the time that I would miss a Marillion gig anywhere in the UK. So to go to that from that to only going to Liverpool, I can only assume it was something to do with work.
You've blocked it out of your memory.
Must have, yeah.
Because I did on the first leg, same as Gary, did Leeds and then did Newcastle City Hall, which was it Friday the 13th of May? 94.
I believe it was.
That wasn't really the first leg. That wasn't really the first leg.
Here.
That's it. I was on the second leg. That one.
I know the following night it was Nottingham, and I went to that as well.
That was a
Saturday. That was a Saturday. So your 13th of May makes the Friday part of that definitely.
Because I remember there's few people I knew there. In fact, Phil Taylor, who was my biology teacher at school, will talk. He'll pop up on different pods all the time because he's much missed and he was a great guy and used to see him at loads of gigs and stuff like that and massive Marillion fan. But we were talking there and he'd been a fan like John from day one and he'd said that at the time that Newcastle gig on the Brave tour was his favourite gig of all the times he'd actually seen them up to that point. He really, really loved it. And to be fair, I think that gig in Newcastle, when H sang Brave, I think at that point that was the most impressed I'd ever been with his voice. That song, that gig, that venue, it was just out of this world.
For me, Craig, I think that Leeds was so special and being naive to it when we went as well. That the second leg couldn't live up to it, but I'm guessing they were more polished.
I saw him in Sheffield on that second leg, and Leslie came with me. It was her first Marillion gig, and we enjoyed it so much. We bought tickets for Birmingham, which was about 3 nights later. But they were Sheffield City Hall's one of my favourite venues anyway, and it's special for H as well because of him seeing the bands of the 70s there. But they were absolutely stunning. By the time that second leg came around, they got the show hunt, with all the sort of changes and everything.
Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is I think are we the exception to the rule in respect of how impressed we were with Brave, even live at that time? But they did get a lot of crap for it, and they did get a lot of people, didn't like it, didn't like the fact that they were playing 70 minutes of new music, didn't like the fact there was very little like Fish era material, didn't like it. It wasn't universally acclaimed.
Well, there wasn't even an opportunity for H to speak to the band until Hollow Man. So you've got all that 20 minutes that precedes it, not interacting with the audience at all.
Because there's a performance piece.
Yeah. But if you're going for a rock show, that wasn't it.
No.
But I don't remember much negativity personally, but equally there was no social media, was there? So I suppose it was down to who you were talking to in the queue and what they thought. But yeah, I seem to remember people being more like in awe of it than anything else. But I certainly know me and my mates we were massively influenced to it, because I was in their signed prog band at the time, and we'd recorded half the album based on, and we were all Marillion fans, and so it was quite poppy, more on the Holidays of Eden type kind of thing. And then we had a massive just change of direction. We were even burning incense in the studio when we were recording. Yeah, I mean that was So for me, it was always like really well received, apart from anyone outside of Marillion, like fans.
And no dog attacks in the queue while you were waiting to get in the queue?
No, it was good. And of course, at that time as well, people still smoked at gigs, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I do remember being like really, really squashed. Luckily, I was tall, and there was all this incense going off, play in mind, and you've got all the smoke as well as this level of smoke.
So
and,
Scott, you were in the
two really
second
angry houses behind me. Yeah.
Sorry, Scott, you were in the second row, but this isn't a time when that didn't matter. Everyone just pushed forward and crowded into the rows, like
Yeah. I was lucky because by that time I was, and I still am, 6'4", so it kind of I was a lot skinnier then, but I could always hold my position in a gig by kind of floating with it. And it was good. I mean, as I say, it was
having a mate your height is handy, because you always see where you are when you want to get back in the
absolutely.
You want to get back in the crowd.
Yeah, I go stand by that guy over there. Yeah, so that was my story from then.
So the funny thing is the reviews for the album. I know we've mentioned Q magazine, but things like Kerrang and Raw, who were around at the time, they really championed the band on Brave. I mean, Kerrang, they gave it the 5 Ks and said it was like one of the most influential rock albums in the last decade or something like that. And it's also in a time where music, the UK rock scene was changing dramatically. The hair bands were falling away a bit, and you had the introduction of grunge and the likes of Nirvana and stuff. So here you've got Marillion coming out with something that's, I would say, kind of timeless. If you listen to it musically wise, it's not fashionable at any time, and I wouldn't say that it fits with the grunge kind of experience, but it's closer to like a Nirvana album than it is to say like a Heart album.
Yeah. So interestingly, Craig, in one of the webs, I can't find it now, but H or Mark says, or Rothery, it might be Rothery, they mention Nirvana and REM, strangely enough.
Yeah.
And they say that it's not, they say it doesn't sound like those bands, but it's got the drive of those bands, which I never realised at the time, but reading it this afternoon, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like REM.
No. And I was I'm a massive REM fan.
I know you are. I've got the complete opposite view of REM. One of the most overrated bands on the planet.
One day you'll get it.
Probably not.
I say that to all my friends about Marillion.
I do remember H saying again around that time, or just a few years later, saying, had that album been released by Radiohead, it would have been hailed as a classic.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Which I think
the name, if they'd been able to, you know how there's the talk about the AMI trying to be clever with the PR release of the album and hiring out the London Planetarium and almost hinting to people that it was for the new Pink Floyd album. And that something like that, I can see why they would try to do something like that, to try and give somebody like a fresh opinion of something that is, something like Living with the Big Lie is nothing like Emerald Lies. It's just pulls apart.
Yeah,
it's only 10 years apart, but it's so different and so I can understand them wanting to try and do something different to say, look, this isn't the old Marillion. This is something completely different.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I said it on a previous pod. It absolutely baffles me that a magazine like Mojo champions Pink Floyd, Genesis, and those kind of bands, yet they won't have a single inch about Marillion. They won't. They didn't review an album. It's Dark. They didn't review the reissues. It's baffling. It really is baffling.
They're playing to their readership, though, Gary, aren't they? They put they put articles about Floyd and Genesis because they shift units.
Yeah, but you think, I don't know, and Radiohead obviously are loved by Mojo, but and just just have a little feature about Brave or even something.
I remember Q magazine backtracked, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I think its initial review was very lukewarm in Q, but when they released Afraid of Sunlight, they gave that 5 stars and said
it was in the top.
Brave was massively underrated, and put really high in their end of year charts, I think, and so I think they kind of got it in the end. But
I think they've always had a PR problem ever since Fish left, no matter what they've done. And, there's times where they did get onto mainstream media, you had your interviews on your TVMs and things like that, and got onto that chat shows and bits and bobs around. But nothing ever really stuck because there was still such a false image of nothing moved from 1985.
No.
It's like even when I've said to people, has Fish left Marillion? Said, yeah, Fish left Marillion while Margaret Thatcher was still Prime Minister. I mean, come on.
Sound a bit touchy there, Craig. Is it all right?
Oh, you just
no, it's true. It's true.
It's silly.
Yeah,
it's silly. Roger Moore was still bloody James. No, he wasn't actually. It was Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton was James Bond. Come on.
Wikipedia, in effect.
But even the fact that people still, had the whole jester thing and the old art. I mean, you still see stuff now with modern stuff where they go for the different art. They go for the old artwork stuff. But I think Brave. I think Holidays was the one that really started the change in the art direction, and Brave is possibly one of the more iconic covers now, as being one of the best because it's simple and does what it says on the tin. So John's holding up the DVD of Brave the movie.
So the band had the cunning plan, and I use the term in inverted commas.
The planning what?
Cunning plan, the Baldrick cunning plan, to use the money that they would have spent on 3 promos to make Brave the movie. And much as I love you, listeners, I've watched this once before in my life. Life is too short to watch this again. So I'm pleased to say that some of my friends on this podcast have taken one for the team and watched this again recently. So, Craig, you've watched it. Gary, have you watched it?
Well, Gary P, this
Gary
one. I will never watch it again.
No, well, you're with me then. Scott, have you watched it?
I have, yes.
Okay. Well, Craig, what do you make of this pile of steaming top?
Well, what's the word that you used after cluster?
It's still, like, from my memory, I haven't watched it for about 20 years. It was a BTEC film. It was like some BTEC students have made it, cobbled it together. Considering he made
qualifications were slightly better than that.
Considering this guy, I mean, I've seen Hardware, I've seen Dust Devil.
Yeah,
they're really good films. And whether he didn't have the budget or I don't know, but it's just terrible. They should have made a film without the band in it and just had.
It should have been one way or the other. It should have been either.
We're talking about Richard Stanley, the director.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, there are parts of it. I'll not crucify it completely. There are parts of it which are effective. The opiate, the credits. That part, the Hollow Man video fits. That's the one thing. The one part of it that the imagery fits the song perfectly. It's really, really good. It is really good. The Opium Den and Slide stuff is visually stunning. The whole like dream sequencey kind of thing is visually stunning there. The rest of it is just tosh. I can't get away with the cheesy voiceover of like the psychologist thing and the imagery on the Seven Bridge and stuff like that is nice, but it's like what Gary says. It's just like a 18-year-old BTEC student cobbling something together.
Yeah,
I don't think the band didn't have as much input into it. All they did was like 2 days worth of film and like their insert bits of like playing some music and that.
Yeah, but the thing I have issue with is it's a dark album. We're not we know that.
Yeah.
But the album has some kind of charm and beauty and that film is just charmless and it's not beautiful for me. The characters aren't, the actors, I don't want to diss the acting.
Well, there's acting, but there's no dialogue.
Yeah, but they're not. Every character in it is not likable, or I don't know. I'm going to stop talking about it.
I really wish they'd spent the money filming the live show.
Yeah, totally.
To have that live show on film from '94 would be amazing.
I mean, the story that's portrayed when they were playing live by what Hogarth was doing, it was far more compelling. And I think Gary, I think you might have said it is that it shouldn't have had the band in. That was so. There's actually a few parallels, isn't there, between The Wall, Pink Floyd, and Brave.
Well, that's what they were aiming for, but on the budget of 50 pence.
Yeah, but like the album had got a concept to it, and it was very dark, and let's in Scott's humble opinion, the Pink Floyd Wall film ain't that good. Certainly not compared to like the live version.
This.
Marginally better, but I think it helps that Pink Floyd aren't in the film. And I think if Marillion went, it broke what was going on in the film. You're supposed to be watching this girl's journey, and suddenly you've got fucking Pete Wallace turning up his bass, sort of turning around to what in the middle of like, what's that?
And you've got H in, is it hard as love?
Don't
you don't want those images in your head.
I've got rid of them.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it for so long that I thought the promo videos were just the film with the band and a green screen in front of them. I hadn't realised the band were in the film because I haven't watched it since.
Gary, don't watch it, mate. You don't need to see it.
I have got it, though. I have got it.
Yeah, well, just look at the box. That's all you need to do.
Yeah,
watch the documentary.
Documentary on the end. Yeah, just watch that. Yeah.
Just watch the Hollow Man video. That's fine.
Yeah, as a piece of art, it's shite.
And I see there's a Richard Stanley documentary about Richard Stanley when he worked with Marlon Brando.
Oh, yeah.
Got fired from the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Didn't he end up just as being one of the monsters?
He sneaked back on set as a monster. It's brilliant.
But to echo John's point, I think it's criminal that the tour was not filmed.
Especially there are a couple of like bootleg kind of ones because it was recorded for South American TV, wasn't it? And there was a couple of other things anyway. But there was at the time. They did get an offer from Eagle Rock to record it, but AMI said no. They put the kibosh on it.
I mean, who at EMI was saying no? That sounds like an awful idea, but I love what they got going on here with Richard Stanley.
I think the fact of the matter is they'd spent so much money. They'd spent so much money that they didn't want to license anything else off because they thought, if we're not going to make money from this, you're not going to make money from this.
Yeah.
It's strange enough. I remember seeing. My sister said, "Oh, she looked at listings. They showed it on TV.
It was on ITV.
Yeah,
it was on,
middle of the
there was
night,
a music show like through the night that used to show stuff like that. I can't for the life of us remember it.
No,
but
I can't. Was it
was
Michael
shown...
Mansfield? There was a guy called Michael Mansfield. I'm sure, or something like that. He had grey hair. He introduced it, and I remember seeing it for the first time on there.
Can you remember? Was it the full film?
Well,
sure.
No, I think it was. I think it might have not been shown till after a couple of us went down to the schoolhouse in Milton Keynes in July of '94 to as a web fan club event where they showed the Brave the film. And it was the uncut version of Brave the film before the BBFC had took their snips to it. And that was a hot and interesting evening because you were there, Gary. I was there. We didn't know each other at the time.
We didn't know, and it was. I went on my dad dropped me off because my sisters were going to go and see Wet, Wet, Wet at Alton Towers for some reason. So they dropped me off.
I think you missed out there, Gary.
I know.
I think we missed out.
Wait, twice.
So
I loved them.
I've seen them live. They're great. Yeah, I just. It was the same day as the Brave film. So, I was there, met a couple of guys from Doncaster and came pen pals for a bit. It was a great day.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't meet Craig, though, sadly.
I was
get to him, all the fans around him. Go get
It's that dick from Newcastle. But it was an interesting thing because John Wesley played a set with Mark Kelly on keyboards and Jump played a set. There was no other band members there that I can remember off.
No.
And
I've got the actual application form for tickets here.
Oh, bloody hell.
Look at that. I've got so much stuff.
I was going to say, what's in your loft?
I know,
it's fish up there.
I mean, there's stuff in there I haven't seen for donkey's years. Someone what's the chap's name that runs the museum?
Who used to run the museum? Oh, you mean Mark Husman run the museum? The new one, yeah.
Oh no, Andy Rotherham.
Andy Rotherham used to do the museum for the weekends.
He's probably got it all, but there's so much stuff in here. Little letters and stuff.
Michelle's good. Well, take it. Take it.
It's all in the loft.
Get it out the house.
It's all in the loft with my football trophies, which aren't many, but.
Funny enough, I just donated all mine to that like online museum now, Guy.
Museum.
Yeah, I have folders and folders and folders of like every interview and tickets and whatnot, and I thought it'd be. It's been stuck in the shed, and I thought it'd be nicer for people to see it than you've just been stuck in my shed. So
like Michelle, did Jane do a happy dance when he did that?
I think she thought I got rid of it about 20 years ago.
It's been hiding in the shed ever since.
It was the price of the ticket for the Brave film. It was £10. It includes your entrance fee, a commemorative T-shirt, and snacks in brackets.
Yeah, there was
nibbles, not meal. Yeah.
Did they lock the doors?
Yeah, from the outside.
Lock the doors when you get in.
Yeah, it gives you the
escape during the film.
The opportunity to see the uncensored version of Brave the film. Since this film contains a very graphic scenes, we have to put the limitations 18 over. Sorry, in brackets.
That's why Craig was at the front of the queue.
Marillion porn, I don't think so.
But obviously Mark was there, wasn't he, Craig? I got my T-shirt signed. He was the only member of the band who was there.
The rest of
what does that tell you?
The other ones were all in Alton Towers watching
having a much better time.
So there's a future cast and crew podcast coming, is there?
Well, I did mention to John about reaching out to some of the people to do with the film, and I got told in no uncertain terms.
Oh. You're not inviting Richard Stanley on here. All you'd see is his hat.
his flasher Mac.
Well, anywho, shall we talk about the music?
I was going to say, this is supposed to be quite a dark and depressing album.
Yeah.
That's for part 2.
Say, what's interesting is the contrast into it, because album, probably the best Marillion album. I think a lot of people think that. The film, yeah.
I've just remembered, guys. A Vox review. Do you remember Vox magazine?
Yes, yeah.
They get guess how many marks they gave out of 10.
1.
No, 0.
Oh,
I remember it clearly. And I was thinking, do you know what? I would be livid about that normally, but you've got a point.
Was Vox the cassette magazine?
Yeah. It was like indie. Yeah. I loved it. I mean, apart from Million, I'm an indie kid, so
it was very good for indie in America, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
0 out of 10.
Wowzers. On that bombshell. Thank you very much, Gary F.
Thank you for having me.
Scott.
Thank you very much.
Probably just run off to the toilet. Gary P.
Cheers, lads. Thank you.
Faye.
Why, thank you, young sir. This has been a blast, guys.
Thank you very much for listening to this. If you've made it all the way to the end, you deserve a medal. We'll be back to talk about the music next week and the live recordings, of which there are a lot. But stay tuned next week for more Brave. It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Take care.
Good night from them.
Take care, and
stay alive. Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out Marillion.com, fishmusic.scot or fishmusic.eu for all the good stuff.